should be very drawable. Instead, like a complete genius that I am not, I go king to e5 and I allow the brilliant pawn to f4. And now the reason that this is losing is because of basic geometry. If the king goes to any of these 4 squares, there is just a knight check or a knight check. So if I go here, he forks me this way. If I go this way, he forks me this way. If I go here, he forks me this way. And if I go here, he forks me this way. So basically, it's just classic horse moves, leading to all kinds of forks. So one thing that's really important in the opening phase of 960 is that you don't give too much of the center. So normally when your opponent pushes in the center, you can't be all funky and start pushing pawns to the edge. Generally that doesn't work. Occasionally if there's certain setups for white where you get like a queen and a rook in the corner, for example, let me just make a couple of random moves so you guys can conceptualize it. Sometimes if you get the queen and the rook assorted like this, sometimes you can go flinging the pawns up the board. But generally, it's not advisable, even in 960 when your opponent plays in the center. So here you have to find a way to take some of the center. So really, the only moves that make sense, or the moves that I consider, were f5, d5, or e6. Those are really the only 3 moves that make sense. Because I mean, if I play like bring a knight out, white just right away is going to get the juicers in the center, and he actually guards via these two critical squares on b3 and c3, and white is doing very, very well here. So you can't really give up the center right away. So then I thought, well, you know, if I can't get the center, I mean, maybe I can play the Franchese defense with like e6 and d5. But again, white can go e5 here, and white plays an advanced French, and even though the diagonal is closed, his bishop here on h1 has really good scope down the diagonal. The black bishop on h8 is really stuck behind the pawn chain. The Lucchini gambit, you mean? Lucchini? I don't know what that is. But anyway, thank you. It's 960, so that won't happen. Unless we randomly get the same starting position of normal chess, but I don't think that will happen. Anyway, okay, so d4, I didn't like e6, so basically I didn't like e6, and then I thought, well, you know, maybe I can play f5 here, but I thought after f5, g3, white again is going to get the scope in the center with the diagonal. He can also push to e4 and break, and black can maybe play d5 and play some sort of a stonewall setup, but in 960, playing stonewalls, playing stuff that's very close and about maneuvering, I almost always try to avoid it unless I have no choice. So yeah, I will say that. So I played d5. That was my reasoning. Another thing I will add you guys, and this is not to be critical, this is not to be really critical of Lee chess per se, but there is one problem that I have noticed with both Lee chess and chess24, which is their software is the way the software works. You have to get a move from white and black in order for the clocks to run. And this actually turned into a very serious discussion before we started the event. Because what happened is they were saying, so, okay, you get the position, let's say, at 12 o'clock, okay? So you get the position at 12 o'clock, and you've got 3 minutes, and white has to make a move. But the problem is, if white makes a move on the board, black's clock doesn't run. So theoretically, if you're black, you could just sit there and think for 5 minutes. And the same applies to white. Before white's first move, the clocks don't auto-start. So it's turned into a very big discussion between the players where originally it was going to be, well, white has 3 minutes and black has 1 minute and he has to make a move because the clocks aren't starting. And then Gary, I think Levon chimed in and then Gary did, and we made it where it's like, you know, white has 3 minutes to think and make a move, and then black has 2 minutes. Secondarily, you guys, we are not allowed to use computers. We aren't allowed to use engines whatsoever. So basically, you look at the board and try to figure out what you're going to do. But no, TQM, it's not about that. That's just honestly how they work. So that's just life. That's just life. Just life. Anyway, all right. So d4, d5, g3. I play g6 again. Keep the symmetry, but also more importantly, I don't want to let white be able to break the center. So by going g6, now if white plays e4 takes, I just win a juicer in the center of the board. Although apparently this is quite bad. Wow, apparently this is good for white. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. I might play Among Us. I don't know. It depends how I feel after I do the analysis. Okay, you guys, with all your MVL stuff, we'll talk about MVL in about 20-25 minutes. But first, we're going to go through the game. So here's Here, Leinier makes what I think was a very big mistake. He played knight to c3. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that black actually in 960 does better than in normal chess. And the reason I think for this is that the symmetry, white has to decide first where to put which pieces to bring out, and black doesn't always have to mirror in the same way as you do in normal chess. So, like here, for example, knight c3 looks like a normal developing move, but it's actually, I think, a very bad move because after c6, again, if white plays e4, you always have to deal with losing this pawn. And now I can create the pawns this way, and my knight has extra scope. It can go to different squares. It's not stuck going right in front of the pawn. So I think this is one of the reasons in 960 to be very, very careful with white, especially in terms of the piece placement. So Leinier plays bishop f4, hits the knight, developing move. I go knight a6 here. Again, get the knight out of the line of fire. Again, no e4 pawn break because you'll lose a pawn in the center. So Leinier tries it anyway with e4. And now I use a lot of time here, and I found a move that I was very proud of. I played this move pawn to e5 here. A very thematic move. Like, both players are trying to fight for the big center here. And I could have taken and maybe grabbed the juicer here, but I was kind of worried that at some point white can go like queen e2 or queen c4, and white castles first, and I'm not going to be able to finish my development because there are all kinds of forking ideas with my king on the e8 square here. So it's pretty dicey and dangerous here, to put it mildly, and so that's why I thought, you know what, let's try to go for something better. So I decided, you know what, I'm not going to give him the center. I'm gonna make a fire on the board and play pawn to e5. So now if white captures, I go d4 here, and after he moves the knight, it gets really dicey because I go queen b4, c3 takes cd4, and I think very simply knight b6 followed by castles or even queen a2 is good. You've got a juicer on the edge of the board, this horse here that really is not well positioned. Knight is not well positioned. Pawns in the center are all kind of soft because everything is targeting them. So I would have been really happy. This isn't even real chess. Don't be sad about this match. I'm not sad at all. I'm just doing analysis. So he goes bishop e3, which I think is a very bad move also. He probably should just trade it, I think, and just hope that it worked here after something like knight here, knight d2, and or maybe this is also bad. Maybe bishop e3 is right. Maybe actually probably should have just gone for this one with d4, knight e2. Interesting. At any rate, he doesn't do this. He goes bishop e3, so I take, he takes. Wait, let's see, is that right or wrong? It's wrong. Oh, I was just supposed to take e4. Really? Takes in de5? Takes? Huh. So apparently it's just really good. Huh. Fair enough. Okay. Interesting. For some reason, I just thought I had to go for this and just get my king. I target the rook, and as long as I get to castle my king out of the center first, I thought I should be fine. And now he plays knight b3, and here I wasn't sure if what I did was right. I was kind of angry. I was kind of angry after my move. Because I castled my king here. I was quite angry because I felt that I should have played knight to c5 here, basically going for this really neat tactic where if white takes knight, you lose the rook, and you have no real good way of protecting. You really have no good way of protecting the knight or the rook. But instead, I'm like, you know what? I can castle because you know it's Leinier. He's gonna be like, okay, it's the first game of the day. It's slow. It's relaxed. I'm just gonna go queen d3 and castle the king. But queen d3 actually loses to a really neat tactic. Again, I go knight c5 here, and after knight takes knight, I take the pawn. And now the queen and the rook, my queen and rook hit his rook, but I also target the queen. So I sack a knight, but I'm going to win a queen, or I'm going to win a rook on d4. Queen on d3 or rook on d4. He's going to blunder. Well, no, it's not about blundering. I just thought first game of the day, it's likely that he won't find the best move. But he played quite well. He took the pawn. I went rook e8, which of course is a terrible move. I should have played, I think, knight c5 again, or maybe knight b6 right away. Essentially, what I probably should have done in this game was just gotten the pawn back and consolidated and try to keep it pretty straightforward. Because what I did in the game actually turns out, I think, to be quite poor. Goes rook d2, I take, and now I take. And yeah, and here Leinier inexplicably, he takes, which is fine. I go here. Yeah, and now, inexplicably, was it here? Yeah, here he took with the knight instead of taking with the rook. If Leinier takes with the rook here, I'm just much worse. Maybe even just losing. I was really confused. because now if I take and go for my classic tricky trick, he goes here, takes, and rook h1 traps the queen. And, you know, it's just pretty classic right triangle stuff, you know, just really, really easily winning for white. So, so yeah, like, I was very happy when I saw him take with the knight, 'cause after knight takes bishop e6, now it's just, white is still maybe slightly better, but it should be close to draw. So he goes knight e3, I take, and now I play bishop b3. I debated for a long time here, which was a big mistake. I probably should have just taken right away, because what I realized during the game is if I take and he takes and I take, white can never be winning here, because at best there's always this idea of making a draw with making a repetition. So I should have just taken right away for this reason, rather than thinking about it. Because now he goes king c1, I go bishop a4. It's a great move. Connect the bishop, create this little classic triangle, or square reverse, or whatever you want to. Actually, no, this isn't a triangle. Sorry, this is it's a square or a diamond, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, queen c4, bishop c6. Now I anchor the pawn. I can put everything here, and it all guards itself. So he goes rook d1. I go queen f6, rook d2, h5, queen f3, h4. Now here I make this repetition, and it was here in this position that I decided to start inting by playing pawn to a5, which is a terrible move, to be clear, a terrible move. What I should have done was just made the draw with queen h1. But for some reason I'm like, okay, you know what? I can go a5. When he goes b3, I just go a4, and surely after takes I can go like rook a8 or something, and I'm fine. But he actually has a5 here. And I can't take, because again, pretty classic, you know, classic right triangle stuff. As he wins the rook on a5 here. But apparently this is supposed to be okay somehow. Oh, I can go here. Oh, and I just take. Because of course if rook d8 I just block with the rook, and bishop guards the rook. Oh, that's pretty terrible. That's pretty terrible. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty bad. So I go rook a8, he goes knight c4, and already I think it's the tide is starting to turn here. I think that at this point white should already be slightly better, although it's not completely clear what's going on. All right, so I play on knight c4. I go queen f5 here. I wanted to play a4, but there's a very nice move, knight to b6 here. Oh, I can go rook b8 and takes. Wait, what? Is the computer insane? This is zero. White's up a pawn, but somehow this is just equal. Okay, you guys, remind me to quit playing chess. I mean, this is ridiculous. I guarantee you, if you were to ask, any grandmaster, ask any player in the tournament even about this position, I can tell you what they would say. They would say that probably with absolute correct play, this is a draw, but realistically, white's going to win this like 90% of the time. I guarantee you that's what they would say. Every single top player, every single player in this tournament would say that. But because computers are so terrible and they like ruining dreams, they basically say that it's only very slightly better for white. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. So instead I play queen f5 here. No, but I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like, seriously, you ask anybody what they think of this position, and they'll be like, yeah, they'll be like, probably with correct play, black can draw, but realistically, especially in blitz or rapid, white's going to win like 90% of the time. And so, like, yeah, just like, ugh. So I go queen f5 instead. King b2, I go king h7, queen e5. Good move, by the way. White starts to try to play for the advantage here using the knight, because my bishop isn't really good. And ironically, this pawn on a5 is really the reason that I end up losing this game, because of that one move. So I go queen f3, rook d4. Very good move by Leinier, by the way. I completely missed this. I think at this point I was still in the mode where I'm like, it's worse, but it's going to be a draw. Surely there's a way to draw. So I go here. I go rook e2. He trades. And now I was very annoyed when Leinier played rook d2, because I thought he would go rook f4, but after bishop d5, knight f5, knight a5, f5, knight c4, bishop e4, knight e3, king g7. White is definitely better here, but the rook is kind of stuck with the pawns and the bishop. around it, so it should be really, really good for black. Or not good for black, but should be very good drawing chances. But then Leinier goes rook d2, which I thought, pragmatically speaking, was a great move. Because, again, if this pawn is anywhere except a5, it's on a6 or a7, then it would be a draw. Can I show you guys a new keyboard one last time? One last time. There you guys go. One last time. I think it is loud. The keyboard is louder, though. So you will hear me when I'm typing. You'll hear me. So, yeah. So, anyway, I play bishop e2. He goes king c3. Now, the real problem here is that my king is far away from getting up and winning all the pawns on the king side. So I go b5 to king g7. I think knight c4 is probably winning. The king and pawn endgame is just completely lost. And otherwise I lose the juicer on a5 and he can bring the king back. So I play b5 to stop knight c4. Maybe try to create a pass pawn. Goes knight e4, king g7. If chess becomes an esport, how will mouseless be accounted for? Will it be ignored? Will it be allowed to be taken back? What do you believe the protocol would be in this circumstance? I mean, look, does Doublelift get a take back when he takes on a fight and he doesn't do anything and he just dies? No. So why should chess be any different? Okay, so king d4, I go bishop d1, king c3, I go pawn to a4. He still has a flash. Does he get, oops, you know, I forgot to use my flash. Can I have a take back and can we have a redo? No, forget about it. Of course not. Anyway, no, I'm not shading. I'm just saying that, like, what is the difference? I honestly don't understand what the difference is. So I go a4, he goes knight d6. Another good move, by the way. At this point I thought I was already fine, and I think I was if I just go bishop c6. Yeah, I mean, it's just a draw. I mean, like, this was so bad. I don't even know what I was thinking. I was just like, I was sure bishop f3 was a draw, and then I'm like, oh, I just go a4 because takes, pawn goes to a3, it's 1v1, easy draw. And then I just forgot that he could go knight d6. And now I think it's still probably a draw, but it requires very precise play. So I go bishop e2, he takes, goes here, takes. And now here I make the big blunder. I think I go here, or no, not quite the big blunder. Here I could have gone bishop d1. And now when he goes king b3, I think king e5. And white is still better here, but I suspect this should be a draw with correct play due to the fact that black can open up the king side here. So it should be very drawable. Instead, like a complete genius that I am not, I go king to e5 and I allow the brilliant pawn to f4. And now the reason that this is losing is because of basic geometry. If the king goes to any of these four squares, there is just a knight check or a knight check. So if I go here, he forks me this way. If I go this way, he forks me this way. If I go here, he forks me this way. And if I go here, he forks me this way. So basically, it's just classic horse moves, leading to all kinds of forks. So basically, then now that's why I lose, because now I have to go here, and after knight d4, my king no longer can infiltrate on the light squares because his knight guards and the pawn guards the entry on e5. So at this point, I think it's just lost. I go bishop f1 here, I go here. Again, basically just trying to wait around. It's very important, by the way, that white puts the knight on e3, because it's a great square, it guards the pawn, but again, it covers all the critical entries, so I no longer have any ways of getting in. So he goes here, I go bishop f3, c5, I just go bishop e4, knight c4, I wait. Now after knight a5, it's just winning, because unfortunately I lose by one tempo here. I go g5, he checks, I take, and knight d4, king, whoops, sorry, knight d4. Luckily we're at the end, so I'm not leaking. I go king d5, knight e2, king e4, king c5, king f3, king d5, and I lose by one tempo, because if I go this way, after here, takes, here, h4, if white were to go king g6, I actually make a draw because the pawn is unstoppable. But white can go knight g1 here because the king guards the pawn. If I ever push, he sacks. So this is losing, and if I go king f3 to hit the knight and the pawn, he just takes this pawn. Or wait, no, sorry, wrong order. Sorry, if I take right away, he goes king here. I go here, takes here, and I lose by one tempo, unfortunately, because after f8 queen, my pawn only gets to 7, and then white can go here, queen to h1, and it's just winning with the king and the queen. So unfortunately, I lose this endgame by one tempo, but considering the opportunities I had earlier to have drawn this, like, I definitely did not deserve to draw the game, because I missed many opportunities, and I kept forcing it, kept making the game go on for literally no good reason, and unfortunately, that's how it goes. So that's life. I lose the first game, and we'll move on to my second round. So obviously at this point I was very annoyed, to put it mildly, after that first game, because certainly when you lose the first game, if you lose a game, you're going to be unhappy. But considering how many numerous opportunities I had to make a draw there, I definitely was very, very unhappy, or malding, as everybody wants to say. So okay, so let's move to game 2. So I didn't have a lot of time off. I had a couple of minutes to just sort of get up, go use the restroom. So I just thought, you know what? We're playing normal chess. King and basically it's the exact same starting position, except the king and the bishop are flipped. The rooks are in the corners, the knights are next to them. There's one bishop, the queen, and it's only these two that are on different squares. So I decided to play e4, knight f3, d4, takes. Levon plays g6. Now, one thing I'm going to say is this actually apparently is very, very bad for black, but I always have had a lot of respect for Levon, and that whenever I've played him in 960, we always get these very original, very different positions. Like we play original positions. There's no symmetry, no like closed boxing. We just we end up just playing like open positions with different pawn structures. Very dynamic plays. So that's why I always love playing against Levon. If you had to lock me up in a room for 24 hours where I was only going to play 960 chess, there's no one that I'd rather play chess with than Levon. So that's who I want. That's who I want to play with. And if it's regular chess, it would of course be Magnus. So yeah. Okay, so d4 takes, knight d4, g6. Chat, stop acting weird. Stop acting all weird, you guys. Chill out. Stop acting weird. No need to be weird. So apparently here, knight takes c6 is supposed to be really, really good for white. But I played bishop c3, knight f6. Actually, you know who'd be good as an imposter, I think? Is Lev. I think if Lev played Among Us and he was an imposter, he would actually be quite good at that. So I go bishop c3 again. One thing you want to think about here, so when you think about the opening, you think about these two pieces that are flipped. The thing that's really important here is that you want to bring this bishop out, because the king can always slide wherever, but the difference is the bishop can't go on this diagonal. So the logical conclusion is that it should go on this diagonal. Go on the other diagonal. So g6, I play bishop c3, knight f6. And here, actually, I would have been significantly better if I had just traded and gone knight d2. And I don't really know why I rejected this, because during the game I thought I can do it, and then I'm like, you know what? There's no rush. I can just take a deep breath, relax, and go knight d2. And as soon as I played knight d2, Lev instantly played d5, and I was very upset immediately. I was like, what have I done? Again, I completely threw it away, and now it's just bleh. Fortunately, I've still had enough of a presence of mind to play g3 here. And now I play d4, I go bishop h3, e6, and I played knight b3. And at this point, I thought that I should be much better. I was very proud of myself, because I was obviously fuming after he played d5. So I was very proud that I was able to kind of come up with an original idea, get my bishops developed, create the wooden X, and then try to bring the queen and castle this way. So now Lev plays bishop b4, fantastic move. I think the best move, maybe the only move where black's not much worse here. So I take, he takes, I play knight e4, he goes here. Now originally during the game I wanted to play pawn to c3, but I got really concerned that he could actually just castle here. And if I take, he takes, and it's looking really, really iffy. There are all kinds of forks here down towards the queen. And I can't draw up here. I cannot draw. Yeah, so yes, basically I thought that black has a lot of threats with these forks, the queen, the rook, and the bishop, and so forth, and it should be really, really good for black. So instead I play knight e4, queen e5, and I will add one thing. I also got really angry during this game, because I actually forgot that black can just castle. So when I played knight e4, I thought, okay, Lev's completely screwed. He can't castle. And then as soon as he played queen e5, I realized, I was like, oh shit, something. Because I realized Lev can just swing the rook to the other side. And so I was like, oh man, I thought I was winning, and now I realize like it's completely not winning. Because when I go here, he just castles. Because the king doesn't have to cross through the check. So because the king doesn't cross through the queen, the rook just goes to the other side for the castle. So I played queen e2. Yeah, I did. I just forgot that he could castle. I thought my queen cut off the castle. I'm like, okay, he can't castle. But the king is through the diagonal. The king is not moving through the queen. The king is not moving through the file. So he castles. I go queen e2. He goes g5. You need to practice more 960. I played quite a bit. I just forgot, honestly. I just forgot. So I go c3, bishop e7. And now I played rook e1. Ironically, that cost me a game against Lev before. There was a game I played against Lev in St. Louis where I would have been winning if black can't castle, but I wasn't sure if black could or could not castle, so I played something else. And sure enough, black could not have castled in that game. I would have beaten Lev, but I wasn't sure, so I did something else. So I go C3, rook E1. Now it's important here, this G5 move, another all-star move by Lev, because if I get F4 here and the queen has to go, I really build the center. My knights are really well placed to attack on the diagonals, and it should be really, really good for white. So he goes G5, I kick the bishop, I go rook E1. Again, I cannot, by the way, I cannot castle here because my king has to cross through the file, so my king can't pass through the D file. So I can't castle to the king side. However, I can just castle to the queen side if I want to. But if I castle here after F5, I'm just going to lose a knight because I can't move it to either of these two squares since there's a pawn and my queen is on E2. So instead I play rook E1, queen C7, I castle, of course. I have to. My king is really bad if I don't bring the rook to the center. He trades, he goes here. I play knight D4, or queen E3, sorry, he goes here. Now I play knight D4. Apparently knight G5 is winning or something? No, this is winning? Oh man, I'm so dog at this game, jeez. Really, it's plus 1.6. Wow. Oh wow, I'm just so bad at this game. So I go knight D4 here. Okay, so it's saying it's plus 1.7. So what did I do wrong here? Aha. Okay, it came down. 1.69. Okay, nice. Let's see. So apparently King B1 is better than King B2. I don't really know why, but apparently King B1 is better than King B2. Anyway, I go King B2. He plays rook G4. What is it? I'm just... Oh, I'm supposed to get... Oh, I'm supposed to go F4 and I'm winning. I think the engine's smoking something. I actually do. This can't be that good, can it? This can't be that good, can it? I mean, I guess this is good for white. This is way too dank for me. Yeah, this is way too dank. I don't think even Lev would have seen it. He'd be like, white's better, but probably it's fine for black. But wow, knight G5 and it's just plus 1.2. Brutal. By the way, guys, this is why computers have ruined chess. They see all these things like our human minds don't completely grasp these things. Levy was saying F4, yeah, because I mean he also was using the engine. But yeah, it's much easier said than it's much easier when you have the engine, because the engine is unfortunately just too good. Engine's just too strong. What can I say? So I go here, F5, and now I think the edge, yeah, now I start to lose the edge because black gets to close the diagonal. I can't create the battery once I come off. And now bishop F6, and yeah, now it's all gone. So literally in like the span of 2 moves, I turned it from something great into something totally terrible and mediocre. Wow. I hate chess sometimes. It's amazing how bad engines make humans look at this game. It really is. It's really amazing how bad these engines make us look. They really do make us look awful, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, just get better. Just get better, right? No, but I mean, it's really bizarre. It's bizarre. It's just bizarre. I mean, this is plus 2. This is unbelievable. How is this plus 1.2? This is ridiculous. This cannot be plus 1.2. This is really plus 1. How is this plus 1.2? I mean, just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Sorry, guys, if I'm slightly tilting, but I'm actually getting annoyed by this. This is really upsetting. Because it's fine to be wrong, but it's amazing how wrong we both were. It's really amazing how wrong we both were. Anyway, okay, we keep looking. I go here. Lev played b5, which, by the way, I thought was a blunder at first, and I thought maybe that was his plan. I don't know what he was doing when he played b5. I thought after king b8, he was doing just fine. I suspect that Lev probably was unaware of what happened in my first game as well, because the way he played this was very much like I was just completely happy-go-lucky, just a normal kind of game. And so I think if Lev had gone king b8 here, I still probably would have been fine, but the game would have been a little bit iffy. But I think Lev was just like, okay, I'm a little bit worse. Let's just play something pragmatic. And even though black gives up a juicer here, he gives up the pawn. Position is very close to draw because black has a great pawn structure. He's got a great knight. My king is kind of loose here on b2. And secondarily, it's opposite color bishops too. So when you add all of those factors into play, the odds of this being a draw are very high. So Lev goes a5. Great move, by the way. He maybe wants to go a4 and tickle me with a3 at some point, or knight c4. He keeps the diagonals alive. So I go king c2. Goes bishop e7. I play queen e2. No, is f3 good? No, please, no. No, maybe f3. I mean, but f3 he just takes and he just goes normal. Yeah, it's kind of like the game. Okay, never mind. Okay, so I go here. Here. Takes, here. Go here. Queen c6. And now, I mean, I guess it's just hard to win. I go king b2. I wanted to go knight d2 here, but after bishop d4, the computer is smoking crack. Because after knight c4, black can just take, and it's a draw. This is not winning, surely. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I feel like there's got to be a way to draw. No, bishop b4 is also a move too. But anyway, I go here. Goes bishop f8. I go here, and now after takes, I take with the bishop. Again, this is the other problem here. If I take with the queen, this actually is just a draw. After queen f3, bishop f8, white cannot advance the pawns here because of the way the symmetry is. So this is actually just a draw. It's a forced draw. And you can see by the evaluation that we know it's a draw. Now, ironically, if this pawn here in this endgame is not on a4, like say this pawn here is on a2 instead of a4, you can play a3, b4 and get the two connected rolling. So if the pawn's on a2, there are probably very good winning chances. Instead I take, he goes here, go here, I take, and now I played h3, which is fine. I mean, maybe queen e1 is better, but again, all these endgames are very drawish, especially after queen e5, hitting the pawn on h2, hitting the queen on e1, and hitting the pawn on and just hitting the king on b2. So I play h3, queen g1. I go b4, he trades, goes here, I go king to c2, queen a1, queen c4, queen a4, I go king d2, queen d7, I go king e2, queen d4, check, queen d5, and I just decide, you know what, enough is enough. Let's just make a draw and get out of dodge. Unfortunately, Levon can play on with king h3, king h4, but as we all know, opposite color bishop endgames are always a draw. So now I go bishop c6, and now we just make the repetition. Again, this is always a draw because the pawns are too close. So when I go here, I don't know what, I didn't see his game. I'll have to take a look later. And if black goes to h2, I can just wait. I just keep the bishop forever, and black can't push. He also can't get the king in because I guard, and it's just a theoretical draw. And if black goes king h2, I can always meet it with king f1. No entry to push. When he goes back, I go back. So when he comes here, I go here. Otherwise, I leave it opposite wherever his king goes. And it's just like Among Us. You literally keep your king as close as you can to the black king. And so we just make this repetition here, and the game ends in a draw. So, all right, let's pop up the third game then between Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and myself. Very kind of interesting position here. And I think actually on move one, Maxime makes a blunder. I think pawn to b3 is a blunder here. I think b3 is actually a blunder. It's kind of weird to me to say that, but I think b3 on move 1 is a blunder because I go knight f6 here, and the idea is to play g6 and target the queen on a1. So he has to go d3 and try to fianchetto his bishop this way. But now I play d5, and after knight f3 c5, it's already very iffy for white because if white goes bishop c3, I can just close the diagonal and build a big ass center here with e5. All right, thank you, man. Anyway, I can create the big center here, and it's all good. So he goes c4, I go g6, again, trying to develop the bishop here. He goes takes, another mistake, by the way. He should have played bishop c3, and after d4, bishop b2. But I still think after knight c6 and e5, eventually I'm getting castled, and I think this is pretty iffy. The queen on a1 looks really misplaced here behind this pawn, potentially this connect 4 even. A7, b6, c5, d4. So instead he takes, I take knight c3. Now I go bishop c6 again. Keep alive the diagonals. My bishops are really powerful here. He goes bishop d2, I castle. He goes g3, knight 7 castles. Now I go b6, and now we're out of the opening phase of the game, so it's very stable, very balanced. But black is definitely better based on the pawn structure here. The connect 3 is really good. White does not have opportunities to push pawns in the center easily. No d4 break because I control the line, but I also control the other line too, down to h1 as well. So he goes queen b1, go rook d8, takes, and now he goes b4. And Maxime, by the way, was just blitzing out these moves. I think at this point he was 0-2, and he was just like, ugh, like I'm having a bad day, things aren't going well. And so he goes b4, and now I play knight to e5, and this is when I think it's already really, really bad for white. If white takes on e5, I take, and I threaten checkmate in 1 because I'm also hitting the knight, so he'd have to retreat. But then I just take, and I just go c4, and like the whole house just collapses in a big pile or a big heap. So Maxime clearly missed this because he instantly played pawn to e4, overlooking bishop takes pawn. White can also play f3 too, but if white goes f3 here, it's the same thing. I just take and I go c4, and again I take advantage of all the weaknesses in the white position with the bishop and then the pawns. It's very hard. So instead he plays e4, and he just blunders bishop takes e4, because now if white takes the bishop, I just trade and take the bishop. If he takes the knight, again I just take, throughout the same checkmate, and now it's even worse because you lost your pawn from e2 that's off the board. So instead we go for this. We trade rook c2. I trade. I play c4. Very thematic. I'm up 1 pawn here. So when you have a passed pawn and you've got a rook behind the passed pawn, push that pawn, baby, push it. So he goes king g2, and I play queen to c6, rook d1, c3. Important to get the pawn as far down the board as I can to prevent the counterplay for white. So now he goes rook d5, e6, rook a5, and now I played rook d8. I suspect this was not clean, and I should have just gone like queen c7 and rook d8 and gotten the same thing without losing the juicer on a7. But instead I play rook d8. He takes. I go rook d2. Goes here. Bishop e5. Again, don't c2 probably is winning, but you feel like there's probably some, or no, it's not. There's queen e5 and it's a draw. So I go bishop e5 first. Cut the square. The rook and the queen support, so I can push. And now he goes queen a3. I go bishop d6 again. c2 walks into rook a8, and the oopsie daisies. And maybe this is a draw somehow, but obviously I don't want to draw. So I go here, rook a8, king g7, queen c1, and now I play queen to c5. And Maxime resigns here in view of the fact that I can just take the pawn on f2 with my queen or with my rook in the next couple of moves. And it's just GG's basically right away. So yeah, it's just a very good win, a very clean win. I think Maxime was definitely on tilt. This game was not Yasser was flaming for bishop e5 instead of bishop d4. Like, why exactly? I don't understand. What I mean, yeah, bishop d4, queen b8, king g7, rook a8, and Yasser wants to claim that this is just an easy win. I mean, it's winning for black, I'm sure, but it's not like, this is not trivial when you see the queen is coming to f8 or h8. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Thank you to Darpan for the Prime. Bellatorius for the Prime. Call me TCP for the Prime. Thank you so much. Thank you to Kaboom Orange for the 5. Romanova for the 4-month resub. Thank you to V1E for the 3. Supreme Slayer for the 2. Ancal for the 3. Hunt Russell for the 2. Ninja Penguins for the 2. Crimcast for the 3. Thank you to Norky Norks for the 2 months as well. Thank you so much, you guys. So anyway, I win this game. Very clean win. Very important win, I would say, to get on the scoreboard at the end of day 1. Thank you to Sage Mass for the Prime as well. Thank you so much. So with that, we end day 1. Here are the standings. We have oops, sorry, I guess that doesn't look okay. Let's put it down here. little bit clearer. We have the standings. Magnus in first place with 2.5, Leinier with 2.5, Wesley with 2 points, solid +1. I'm on 1.5 along with Fabiano, Levon, Peter Svidler, Gary, Kimovic, Kasparov, and then at the bottom you have Alireza Firouzja on 0.5 point, and you have Maxime Vachier-Lagrave on 0. So those are the standings after 3 rounds. Tomorrow I start by playing Magnus, then I play Fabiano, and then I think I play Gary.